June 6, 1944, dawn breaks over a gray, churning channel. The wind whips salt and spray into the faces of men packed tightly into flat, bottomed landing craft. Waves toss the boats like toys, metal groaning under the strain. Ahead, cliffs rise, jagged and forbidding, dotted with bunkers and machine gun nests. The air vibrates with the distant rumble of naval artillery, each boom shaking the boats, each flash illuminating the terror etched into young faces. Ropes hang over the sides. Rangers grip them with white-knuckled determination, knowing the drop could be their last. Mines litter the sands below, and every foot of progress will be met with fire. The German defenders, confident and entrenched, have declared these beaches impassable, impenetrable. Yet across the channel, determination surges. Men will climb, fight, and die to tear that illusion apart. In the first seconds, chaos erupts. German guns thunder, bullets carve through spray, and landing craft shudder under direct hits. Yet the Rangers advance, climbing, scrambling, pushing forward against impossible odds. The cliffs, the guns, the sea, they will not hold them back. The first rope is secured. A hand reaches over the edge, and then another. The battle to shatter the myth of the Normandy coast begins. By early 1944, Europe had endured nearly 5 years of total war. Nazi Germany controlled vast swaths of territory, from the Atlantic coast of France to the steppes of Russia. Yet the balance of power was shifting. On the Eastern Front, Soviet forces pressed relentlessly. In Italy, Allied armies clawed forward through mountains and rivers. And in England, across the Channel, the stage was set for a decisive operation that would change the course of the war, the liberation of Western Europe. The Allies had been planning an invasion of France for over a year. Code, named Operation Overlord, it required meticulous coordination, air supremacy, naval bombardments, and the mass landing of troops on heavily fortified beaches. German intelligence, however, believed that the invasion, if it came, would strike at Pas de Calais, the narrowest point of the Channel. Normandy, a stretch of beaches backed by cliffs and heavily reinforced positions, seemed less likely. That misjudgment would prove crucial. The Germans had spent years constructing the Atlantic Wall, a network of bunkers, minefields, barbed wire, and artillery placements stretching from Norway to the Spanish border. Coastal towns were fortified, gun emplacements hidden among cliffs, and fields wired with anti-tank obstacles. The 352nd Infantry Division, positioned at Normandy, was confident. Allied planners would underestimate the difficulty of assaulting this region. Their confidence, however, bordered on hubris. Many German officers believed their natural defenses, the cliffs, the tides, and the beaches themselves, would repel any landing force. Meanwhile, across the Channel, Allied reconnaissance and intelligence were intensive. Spies, aerial photographs, and resistance reports pieced together the German defensive layout. Engineers calculated tides, currents, and obstacles. Yet even with months of preparation, no one could predict the chaos of battle, the unpredictability of weather, or the courage of the men who would storm the beaches. Every detail mattered. A misstep in timing, a single miscalculation, could turn a landing into a slaughter. On the eve of D-Day, thousands of troops assembled along southern England. Among them, the U.S. 2nd and 5th Ranger Battalions received their orders. Their mission was clear, yet daunting: scale cliffs under fire, neutralize German artillery, and open the way for infantry and armored divisions. Across the coastline, German officers slept with confidence, certain that any assault could be repelled by sheer defensive advantage. They had built fortresses along the shore, emplaced heavy guns, and relied on the tides to aid their defense. But they had not accounted for the tenacity of these lightly armed, specially trained Rangers. Every soldier knew the stakes. Each landing craft carried dozens of men, their lives dependent on precise timing, courage, and the hope that artillery barrages would have softened the enemy positions. Yet the reality would be harsher than any simulation. The Atlantic surf slammed against the cliffs, mist obscuring the target. The Rangers' hearts pounded, eyes fixed on impossible objectives. Across the water, German soldiers manned bunkers, scanning for movement, confident that nothing could breach their defenses. The tension was palpable. Intelligence reports warned of German artillery, machine guns, and fortified positions. Yet the Allies relied on deception and surprise. Paratroopers would drop inland to disrupt communications. Bombers would strike, and the first waves of landing craft would advance against formidable odds. The battle for Normandy was not only a contest of men and machines, but of expectation versus reality. The German belief in an impenetrable coast would soon collide with Allied resolve. This tension, this contrast between confidence and resolve, set the stage for one of the most iconic moments of World War II. The German expectation of impassable beaches was about to be shattered, and the fate of Europe would hang on the courage of a few hundred men scaling sheer cliffs under relentless fire. Normandy was not a single uniform stretch of sand but a patchwork of beaches, cliffs, hedgerows, and rivers. The Allied planners divided it into sectors: Utah and Omaha for the Americans, Golden Sword for the British, Juno for the Canadians. Each presented unique challenges. Omaha, with its wide-open beaches backed by bluffs, promised deadly fire from entrenched positions. Utah, slightly less defended, offered an opportunity to gain a foothold. But the most daunting objective for the U.S. forces was Point du Hoc, a rocky promontory that jutted into the channel and housed German heavy artillery, capable of firing inland, threatening the landing beaches. The cliffs of Point du Hoc were nearly 100 feet high. From German bunkers perched atop, artillery crews could fire on the beach and the approaches, cutting down waves of landing craft with murderous precision. Fields below were wired with mines and scattered with obstacles to destroy vehicles. The Germans had every reason to believe that this natural and man-made combination rendered the point unassailable. For them, the bluff was a fortress. For the Rangers, it was an obstacle demanding courage, ingenuity, and improvisation. Weeks before the invasion, American intelligence operatives conducted reconnaissance missions. Aerial photographs revealed gun emplacements and observation posts. The men of the Office of Strategic Services and specialized units risked their lives to map the terrain. Information flowed back to planners in England, who calculated the optimal landing time. The assault had to coincide with rising tides to expose obstacles and provide some cover for the advancing troops. Every second, every wave, every rope would matter. Meanwhile, the Germans were not idle. The 305th 2nd Infantry Division, newly deployed to Normandy, had begun reinforcing positions, but resources were stretched. Orders from high command assumed the Allies would strike elsewhere, leaving certain sections under-defended. Within the bunkers, soldiers trained for months, drilling in anticipation of an attack that they expected would never come at this precise location. Confidence ran high. From their observation posts, they could see the ocean, study the tides, and monitor the beaches. Their reports indicated low likelihood of direct assault, a judgment that would soon prove tragically wrong. The landing plan called for an unprecedented combination of airborne and amphibious assault. Paratroopers would drop behind enemy lines to disrupt communication and artillery coordination. The Rangers, trained to climb sheer cliffs, under fire. Would assault Pointe du Hoc, neutralize the artillery, and hold the position until reinforcements arrived? Every detail of timing, route, and coordination was calculated meticulously. Yet even the best plans could not account for the chaos of battle, the swirling water, the noise of gunfire, the unpredictability of human action under stress. The night before the invasion, the beaches of Normandy lay quiet. Mist rising off the channel. Soldiers checked weapons, inspected ropes and ladders, and steeled themselves for the ordeal ahead. Across the coast, German officers slept in bunkers, certain that the cliffs and sand would repel any force. The difference in perception, confidence on one side, calculated dread on the other, would define the battle. As dawn approached on June 6, every element was in place. Landing craft slid into the surf, paratroopers floated toward fields inland, and the first volleys of artillery signaled the beginning of an assault that would defy German expectations. What they considered impenetrable was about to be breached. What seemed invincible would be challenged by courage, ingenuity, and determination. In that moment, the stage was set for the Rangers' assault, a climactic confrontation that would echo through history. The men chosen for the Pointe du Hoc assault were young, trained, and resolute, yet nothing could fully prepare them for the scale of what awaited. Climbing 100-foot cliffs under enemy fire required a blend of physical strength, mental fortitude, and sheer willpower. Each ranger knew that the first few seconds could be fatal. The ropes, grappling hooks, and ladders they carried were lifelines, and yet every foot of ascent exposed them to German bullets, mortars, and falling debris. Fear was constant, but it did not dominate. In the faces of these soldiers, determination burned brighter than panic. Bonds formed instantly. Men encouraged one another, shouted warnings over the roar of artillery, and lifted each other over obstacles. Courage was not an abstraction. It was measured in each pulse, each step, and each act of selfless bravery as they scaled cliffs that seemed insurmountable. The assault on Normandy was a masterclass in military planning, yet no plan survives contact with the enemy unscathed. Reconnaissance, tide calculations, naval bombardment schedules, and intelligence reports informed every movement. Yet the Germans had fortified the cliffs in ways that aerial photographs could not fully capture. Obstacles had been repositioned, bunkers hidden by natural rock formations, and artillery crews moved at the last moment. Landing craft were slowed by unexpected currents. Even with meticulous planning, the Rangers faced a battlefield that tested every assumption, every calculation. Adaptability became as critical as training. Small tactical decisions, choosing a foothold, timing a rope climb, deciding when to fire, determined who survived and who did not. Technology played a silent but decisive role. Landing craft, amphibious tanks, artillery, and communications equipment shaped the battlefield. Higgins' boats delivered troops to shallow beaches under the threat of mines and obstacles. Artillery barrages from naval ships sought to soften German defenses before troops landed, though the effectiveness was often uneven. Radios allowed limited coordination, though signals were frequently jammed or drowned out by the chaos. On the German side, the Atlantic Wall's guns, bunkers, and observation posts were formidable, built to exploit natural geography. Yet technology alone could not replace human initiative. The battle became a dialogue between machines and men, each testing the limits of the other, each moment revealing how tools could amplify, or fail, the courage of those who wielded them. From the German vantage, Normandy seemed secure. The Atlantic Wall, reinforced with concrete bunkers, machine guns, mines, and artillery, created a sense of invulnerability. Commanders believed the geography itself, the cliffs, tidal patterns, and open beaches, would deter any assault. Many officers assumed that the Allies would strike at the narrower channel point of Pas de Calais, leaving Normandy as a diversion. This overconfidence bred complacency. Patrols were limited, artillery crews underestimated the range of Allied tactics, and positions were only partially manned. When the first landing craft appeared, German soldiers were caught off guard, realizing too late that the beaches were penetrable, that their confidence had underestimated human ingenuity and determination. Leadership on both sides dictated the outcome. Let call. James Earl Rudder of the 2nd Ranger Battalion exemplified calm decisiveness under extreme pressure. He coordinated climbing parties, reassigned men to secondary objectives, and maintained morale even as casualties mounted. On the German side, officers struggled to respond to the unexpected landing. Communication lines were disrupted by Allied air and naval operations, delaying reinforcements. Tactical decisions were often reactive, made under fire, and constrained by rigid doctrine. Leadership became a matter of adaptability, quick judgment, and the ability to inspire action in soldiers facing life or death scenarios. The psychological dimension of the battle was profound. Rangers faced imminent death yet pressed forward. Each decision weighed between self-preservation and duty. The fear in their eyes, the tension in every muscle, was mirrored by the German defenders, whose confidence crumbled under surprise and relentless assault. Morale was fragile, contingent on perception and action. The psychological battlefield was as lethal as the physical one. Courage, fear, determination, and despair intertwined, shaping the human experience of combat. Every successful climb, every bunker neutralized, and every fallen comrade shifted the balance, proving that the human mind and spirit were decisive forces on the beaches of Normandy. Finally, the interplay between leadership and technology defined the assault. Radios, artillery spotting, and observation balloons allowed commanders to react dynamically, though often imperfectly. Navigating landing craft under fire, directing suppressive fire from naval vessels, and managing climbing operations required constant coordination. Decisions were made in seconds, and the wrong choice could be fatal. Technology provided options, but human judgment determined survival and success. On both sides, the interaction between men and machines highlighted the intricate dependence of strategy on execution under extreme conditions. At 06:30, the first wave of landing craft ground against the beach at Point du Hoc. The surf pounded the hulls, tossing men in unison with the relentless waves. Above, German artillery and machine guns opened fire without warning. Bullets sliced through spray, mortar shells shattered the sand, and landing craft shuddered under the impact. Chaos erupted instantly, and yet the Rangers advanced. Every step toward the cliff base was measured, every breath stolen under fire, every heartbeat a negotiation with death. Ropes and ladders were thrown over jagged rock faces. Men began the ascent, hands raw and bleeding, eyes fixed on the summit where German observers waited. Explosions showered debris onto the climbers, yet retreat was impossible. Some fell back. Others pushed upward, driven by determination, training, and a desperate will to survive. Small groups improvised as equipment malfunctioned or was destroyed. Commanders like Call. Rudder coordinated under fire, redirecting units, ensuring the climb continued despite the chaos. At the cliff tops, German defenders fired from bunkers, crouched behind reinforced positions. Mortars sent craters forming at the Rangers' feet. Yet the attackers adapted. Suppressive fire from naval guns and artillery muted the enemy's advantage in intervals, giving climbing parties precious seconds to scale the heights. Hand-to-hand combat erupted immediately upon reaching the top, with Rangers using bayonets, grenades, and rifles to dislodge entrenched defenders. The psychological shock of men appearing where none were expected, the cliffs thought untouchable, sowed confusion among German ranks. Amid the smoke, noise, and blood, key objectives were seized. Observation posts were neutralized, artillery emplacements were destroyed or captured, and signaling posts fell into American hands. The first wave had achieved what German intelligence had deemed impossible. Yet this success came at a cost. Hundreds of Rangers were wounded or killed in the initial assault, their courage offset by devastating losses. Each position taken was a small triumph, each casualty a reminder of the human toll. As the morning progressed, successive waves reinforced the initial assault. The battle became a brutal negotiation of territory, where determination met firepower, improvisation countered fortification, and human courage defied the lethal environment. Every climb, every engagement, chipped away at the myth of an impregnable coast. By midday, the cliffs of Pointy du Hoc had been scaled, the guns silenced or destroyed, and the German expectation of invincibility shattered. By late morning, the full scale of the Rangers' achievement became clear. The cliffs, once thought impenetrable, were now dominated by American forces. Survivors scrambled to consolidate positions, digging in amid the smoke, rubble, and scattered bodies of fallen comrades. The guns that had threatened the landing beaches were destroyed or captured, neutralizing a lethal threat to the Allied advance. Yet victory was measured not only in objectives seized, but in the relentless human cost. Every foothold claimed was paid for with blood and sacrifice. German soldiers regrouped where possible, attempting counterattacks from hidden bunkers and nearby positions. Artillery fire and machine gun bursts continued to rain down on the beach and cliffs, but the Rangers, now reinforced by additional waves, held firm. Communications were established with naval units offshore, enabling artillery to suppress remaining enemy positions. The combination of ground tenacity and naval firepower ensured that the momentum stayed with the assaulting forces. The psychological effect on the German defenders was profound. Confidence eroded as the once secure cliffs fell. Officers struggled to coordinate an organized defense, hampered by disrupted lines of communication and the unexpected aggression of the Rangers. The assumption of impassable defenses had been decisively disproven. Those who survived were forced to retreat, surrender, or risk encirclement. The notion of invulnerability crumbled under the relentless assault, and with it, the German perception of control over Normandy's coast. Beyond Pointe du Hoc, the broader invasion unfolded in tandem. Rangers' success enabled infantry and armored units to land with fewer immediate threats from heavy artillery. Paratroopers inland disrupted German command and communication, creating confusion that compounded the defensive collapse. The assault demonstrated the interplay of courage, planning, and adaptability. Individual acts of bravery, climbs under fire, clearing bunkers, securing critical points, interlocked with coordinated military strategy to produce a decisive outcome. By the end of the day, the cliffs stood in Allied hands. The German expectation of an impregnable coastline had been shattered. Pointe du Hoc became a symbol not only of tactical victory, but of human courage and resilience under the most extreme conditions. The success here reverberated across Normandy, signaling the beginning of the collapse of German coastal defenses and the wider advance into occupied France. The stage was set for the next phases of the Normandy campaign, with momentum firmly in Allied hands. The immediate consequences of the Pointe-du Hoc assault were stark and tangible. Allied forces had achieved a critical tactical objective, removing heavy artillery that could have inflicted catastrophic casualties on troops landing at Omaha and Utah beaches. The destruction of these guns ensured that the first waves of infantry could advance inland with a reduced threat from long-range bombardment. Success, however, came at an enormous human cost. Nearly half of the 225 Rangers who had scaled the cliffs were killed or wounded within the first hours. Every inch gained was a testament to courage, training, and improvisation under fire. German forces were left stunned. Their confidence in the Atlantic Wall defenses, particularly the cliffs, was shattered. Reports from surviving officers described disbelief as they attempted to regroup. Orders from higher command came too late. Hampered by disrupted communication and the rapid pace of the Allied assault, German infantry units, forced to respond piecemeal, were unable to mount effective counterattacks. The perception of an impenetrable coastline had evaporated, replaced by the reality of human ingenuity, audacity, and the willingness to confront impossible odds. The psychological impact on both sides was profound. For the Allies, the success at Pointe-du Hoc became a rallying symbol of courage and determination. It bolstered morale among troops across Normandy, proving that even the most daunting objectives could be achieved with coordination, training, and resolve. For German soldiers, the failure instilled a sense of vulnerability and uncertainty. The Atlantic Wall, previously regarded as an unbreachable fortress, was now demonstrably fallible. Officers had to reconsider defensive strategies, and the myth of German invincibility along the coast was irreversibly damaged. Beyond the immediate battlefield, the tactical advantage gained had strategic implications. By neutralizing the artillery, the Rangers enabled a safer landing for follow-on units, facilitating the inland push toward strategic objectives like Corentin, Saint-El, and eventually Caen. The success of a relatively small, specialized unit highlighted the effectiveness of targeted, high-risk operations, reshaping Allied perceptions of how concentrated force, reconnaissance, and surprise could achieve disproportionate effects in modern warfare. The events of June 6 would reverberate beyond the day itself. Surviving Rangers carried scars, memories, and stories that would define the legacy of the unit and the larger campaign. For historians and military strategists, the assault provided clear lessons on the importance of morale, leadership, adaptability, and the interplay between human courage and technology. The cliffs had been scaled, the guns silenced, and the German belief in an impenetrable coast demolished, marking a turning point in both the battle for Normandy and the broader trajectory of the war. In the days following the assault, the broader consequences became evident across Normandy. The successful seizure of Pointe-du Hoc allowed Allied forces to consolidate their beachheads and advance inland with reduced interference from long-range German artillery. Infantry and armored units were able to link with the Rangers, securing key routes and enabling the push toward strategic objectives deeper in occupied France. The psychological momentum gained was as important as the tactical victory. Soldiers across the landing zones recognized that formidable defenses could be overcome, instilling confidence and determination for the grueling campaign ahead. German forces attempted to regroup, but the collapse of key defensive positions, combined with disrupted communications, made coordinated counterattacks almost impossible. Units once confident in their positions found themselves isolated and vulnerable. Reports from German command reveal both frustration and disbelief as commanders struggled to respond to a strategy that defied their expectations. The myth of the Atlantic Wall, long touted as invincible, was irrevocably damaged. For the German soldier on the ground, the breach of Pointe du Hoc was both shocking and demoralizing. The assault also had lasting human consequences. The Rangers endured significant casualties, with nearly half of the initial assault team killed or wounded. Yet their success ensured that subsequent Allied operations faced a less lethal environment, saving countless lives in the days that followed. Survivor accounts describe the mix of exhaustion, grief, and grim satisfaction. Each foothold gained was a testament to both bravery and loss. Families thousands of miles away would learn of the heroism and sacrifice that defined this pivotal moment in the invasion. Strategically, the lessons of Pointe du Hoc influenced Allied operations throughout Normandy. The success of a small, elite unit in overcoming seemingly insurmountable obstacles underscored the importance of specialized forces, careful planning, and adaptability in modern warfare. It demonstrated that even the most formidable fortifications could be breached with the right combination of intelligence, courage, and coordination. The operation became a model for small unit effectiveness and inspired similar actions in subsequent campaigns, shaping military doctrine and emphasizing the human element in battlefield success. As Normandy fell under Allied control, the ripple effects of Pointe du Hoc extended beyond the immediate military objectives. German defensive morale was shaken, Allied confidence soared, and the tide of battle increasingly favored the liberators. The cliffs, once symbols of impenetrability, now stood as monuments to both the ingenuity and the sacrifice of those who dared to climb them. The stage was set for the continued push into occupied France. With momentum firmly in Allied hands, and the German defenders struggling to comprehend how their greatest strength had been so decisively neutralized, Pointe du Hoc stands today as more than a geographical feature. It is a testament to human courage, ingenuity, and the relentless pursuit of duty in the face of overwhelming odds. The cliffs, once deemed impassable, were scaled by men who understood the stakes, yet refused to yield to fear. Their success did not come from sheer luck or magic. It was the product of training, meticulous planning, improvisation under fire, and an unwavering commitment to a mission larger than themselves. The assault shattered not only German artillery, but the very notion of invulnerability. It exposed the limits of confidence, built on natural and man-made fortifications, and demonstrated that adaptability and human resolve could redefine the battlefield. For the Allies, the triumph symbolized the power of strategy combined with courage. The idea that no position, however formidable, is unassailable when men confront it with discipline, ingenuity, and determination. Yet the victory was tempered by loss. Each foothold was purchased with lives, each bunker seized through sacrifice. The echoes of gunfire, the cries of the wounded, and the grief of fallen comrades serve as reminders of war's human cost. Pointe du Hoc encapsulates this duality, heroism intertwined with tragedy, audacity inseparable from peril. Ultimately, the battle at Normandy's cliffs carries lessons that extend beyond the military. It speaks to resilience, to the capacity of individuals to confront fear and uncertainty, and to the transformative power of decisive action against seemingly insurmountable odds. The Rangers' climb, executed in the crucible of war, remains a defining moment in history, not just for the liberation of Western Europe, but for what it reveals about the courage, ingenuity, and enduring spirit of those who dare to challenge the impossible.